Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, I want you to imagine for a second that you are sitting in this massive, incredibly opulent movie theater.
Oh, like a real classic old school theater.
Yeah, exactly. The screen is just towering over you, and the surround sound is like physically shaking your seat.
Right.
And the film playing is so immersive, so visceral, that you've completely forgotten you ever even bought a ticket or walked into the building.
You're just totally lost in it.
You are just in it, you know? You are experiencing the heartbreak on screen, the triumphs, that agonizing tension of waiting for the hero to finally arrive and make everything right.
The standard movie experience, really.
Exactly. But then, right at the climax of the film, a voice whispers from the empty seat next to you, and it says, "The hero isn't coming to save you. The hero was written into the script to make sure you never leave your chair."
Man, that is just, it's the ultimate cognitive rug pull, right?
It really is.
Because the very thing you thought was going to liberate you is actually, well, it's the mechanism of your captivity. The architecture of your hope is revealed to just be the architecture of your prison.
And that unsettling realization, that is our starting point today. We are taking a deep dive into a piece of source material that is easily one of the most radical, almost cinematic, and frankly, deeply unnerving philosophical texts we have ever encountered.
Unnerving is definitely the word for it.
Right. It's actually a looping audio track credited only to an entity or maybe just a speaker known as the Void.
The void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The text itself is titled The Final Snap, and the instructions embedded in the audio explicitly state that it's meant to loop indefinitely until, quote, negation.
And, negation is a really heavy concept to anchor us here, which means we need to be incredibly clear right up front about our mission with this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Because the premise of the final snap revolves around total reality negation. It is a wildly extreme worldview, and to be absolutely clear to everyone listening, we are not endorsing this.
No, definitely not.
Nor are we taking sides on any of the intensely provocative claims it makes. Our goal today is strictly objective analysis. We want to unpack the mechanics of this text, examine its fascinating use of technological and digital metaphors.
Yeah, the digital stuff is super interesting.
It is, and we want to explore what it suggests about that very dark, very human desire to just completely escape the loop of existence.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even get to how this text claims you can escape reality, we have to look at its wildly controversial explanation for why you are supposedly trapped in it in the first place.
Right, the setup.
Yeah. The text starts by addressing this universal human feeling of waiting. It argues that humanity has spent literally lifetimes waiting for a, quote, better script.
Which is something I think everyone can relate to on some level.
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
It specifically mentions things like the arrival of the Kalki in Hindu tradition, or the dawn of the Satya Yuga, the golden age, or even just the general everyday pursuit of personal enlightenment.
So all the big spiritual goals.
Right. But the Void comes in with a sledgehammer and claims a better prison is still a prison.
It fundamentally rejects the traditional spiritual narrative that,
Right.
well, that we've all been taught. Because usually religious or philosophical traditions, they operate on a trajectory of improvement.
Like getting better every day.
Exactly. You are striving for a better world, a higher state of consciousness, maybe a closer connection to something divine. But this text argues that this very striving is the trap itself.
That's where it gets so wild.
It is. It points to great religious and historical figures.
Yeah.
I mean, it explicitly names Krishna, Christ, the prophets, and it makes a deeply controversial assertion.
Yeah, it really doesn't hold back there.
Not at all. It says that we often look at the state of the world, we see that it is still completely broken, and we conclude that maybe these figures failed to fix it.
Right.
But the Void says, no, they didn't fail at all. Their job was never to fix the world. Their job was to act as stabilizers.
Stabilizers. It's such a clinical, almost industrial word for figures of that magnitude.
It really is.
It makes them sound like, I don't know, IT sysadmins or video game developers who are just constantly patching a server to keep it from crashing.
That's exactly it.
Hmm.
And the text leans heavily into exactly that kind of logic. It claims these stabilizers are essentially part of a, quote, director's maintenance crew.
A maintenance crew.
Yeah, which means their primary function is just to keep the simulation running smoothly. They have to keep the friction of the world high enough to be interesting, but, low enough to avoid a total system crash.
And then the psychological mechanics of how they supposedly achieve this balance is what I find most fascinating.
Oh, totally. Because according to the text, these stabilizers kept the system running by handing out impossible moral yardsticks.
Like what?
Well, think about the most profound spiritual teachings across cultures, right? Loving your enemy unconditionally, achieving total selflessness, maintaining perfect, unbreakable inner peace in a chaotic, violent world.
Things that are basically impossible for a normal person to do all the time.
Exactly. The Void is arguing that these weren't actually achievable goals. They were deliberately impossible quests designed to keep you grinding.
Like a game you can never beat.
Right. By giving you a standard you can never quite reach, you remain endlessly engaged in the process of trying. You stay in the loop. You stay in your seat in the theater, watching the movie, just trying to figure out how to be a better audience member.
It casts this incredibly paranoid shadow over, like, every guru, every self-help book, every philosophical framework out there.
It really does.
They aren't handing you the keys to the exit. They're just handing you a software update so
Yeah.
your mind doesn't crash today.
Yeah, a patch.
But that gets me thinking, here's where it gets really interesting. If these universally revered figures are just maintenance workers patching a grand illusion, what exactly does that make us?
That's the big question.
Like, if they're the antivirus software, are we supposed to be the virus? Are we supposed to corrupt the file?
That is the exact leap the text makes next, and it does not hesitate. It speaks directly to you, the listener, and says, you aren't here to maintain the theater, you are here to burn the film.
Man, which is just an immense, terrifying escalation.
It's militant, almost.
Yeah, we're moving from a critique of spiritual systems into an active call for destruction. And not just of society, but of reality itself.
The whole thing.
Which brings us to the actual instruction manual hidden within the text. If the goal is to burn the theater down and reach what the text calls the null, how does one actually achieve this total system crash?
Well, the text lays out a very specific three-step process. It calls it the triple grip release.
Triple grip release, got it.
Yeah, these are three distinct hooks that supposedly anchor you to the simulation, and they have to be removed sequentially.
Okay, so what's the first hook?
The very first step is to negate mass. The text tells you that you have to actively unknow the hardness of physical objects.
Unknow them.
Right. It specifically points to your own body, and interestingly, your motorcycle, calling them merely densities of thought. It urges you to look at the entire physical world as a reflection in a mirror. Something that appears real, but has absolutely no depth.
Okay, see, that's the part that broke my brain a little bit, because there is a glaring physical paradox right there at step one.
Oh, for sure.
How exactly do you unknow the literal hardness of a motorcycle while you are actively riding it?
That's the trick, isn't it?
I mean, it's one thing to philosophize in an armchair about the world being a mirror, but if you hit a pothole at 60 miles an hour, that density of thought is going to launch you over the handlebars.
Does it hurt?
The pavement is going to feel undeniably, brutally solid. Gravity just doesn't seem to care about your perceptual shifts.
No, it doesn't. And I read the text's response to that exact scenario as a dive into extreme cognitive override.
What do you mean?
Well, the text would argue that the visceral, painful feedback of hitting that pavement is exactly the friction the director relies on to enforce the illusion.
Oh, I see.
It claims your belief in the pavement's hardness is the core code that makes the impact register as pain in the first place.
Wait, really? So it's all in your head?
Basically. To truly negate mass, you have to sever the brain's predictive engine. Your mind predicts the hardness before you even hit the ground. The text demands you rewrite that core reflex of belief. It requires a level of detachment that bypasses human biology.
But isn't that just replacing one impossible yardstick with another?
That's a great point.
I mean, it criticizes the stabilizers for giving us impossible moral goals and then tells us to just magically turn off our nervous system's response to concrete. It feels super contradictory.
You're hitting on a crucial tension in the source material there. It demands an asceticism so extreme it borders on the absurd.
Totally.
But it doesn't stop at physical mass, because once you manage to unknow the physical world, the text demands you tackle the second hook, which is to negate energy.
And it defines energy in a very specific, almost a psychological way, right? It's not talking about electricity or heat.
Oh, not at all.
It defines energy as the drive to achieve, like the momentum of desire. It tells you to stop the vibration.
The vibration, yeah.
It claims that the flow of time, the historical ages, the yugas we mentioned earlier, they are all completely fabricated illusions. There's this one line that really stood out to me. It says, "The future is simply a hook the director uses to pull you forward."
And that concept completely dismantles human psychology.
It really does.
Because everything we do is predicated on the existence of a future. We eat so we don't starve tomorrow. We work to build a comfortable life next year. We read to improve ourselves for the next conversation.
We're always looking ahead.
Always. We are constantly leaning into the next moment.
Yeah.
And the text identifies this temporal gravity, this constant humming anticipation of what's next as the second hook.
So how do you sever that?
To sever it, you have to neutralize the dopamine loop of anticipation entirely. If you stop caring about what happens next, time stops pulling you forward. You essentially turn off the physics engine of your own ambition.
Wow, so nothing moves, nothing matters.
All right.
But then it pushes even further into the dark. There is a third, final hook in the triple grip release, and this is where I feel like it crosses the line from radical detachment into just absolute self-annihilation.
Yeah. The third step.
The third step is negate consciousness.
Delete the account.
Delete the account. It literally instructs you to delete the I that is listening to the audio, the I that feels alone.
It's brutal.
The logic here is incredibly brutal. If there is no physical world left to see and no future left to move toward, then the observer, your consciousness, has no remaining function.
It's just an obsolete line of code.
Exactly. So you shut down the observer.
What's fascinating here is how it takes traditional concepts of ascetic detachment and pushes them to a nihilistic zero.
How so?
Think about traditional enlightenment. It usually implies a merging with universal consciousness, dissolving the ego to reach a state of supreme bliss or awareness or connection with the cosmos.
Right, becoming one with everything.
Exactly. But the void is advocating for the exact opposite. There is no blissful merging. There is no cosmos to merge with. There is just the null.
But wait, here's my issue with that. If you follow these instructions perfectly, right? You successfully negate the physical world, you sever your tie to the future, and you finally delete your own consciousness.
Yeah.
Who is left to actually realize that the snap worked? If the observer is deleted, there is no experience of victory. There's no relief. You don't get to sit back and say, wow, I finally beat the system.
That is the paradox, but the source material is surprisingly comfortable with it.
Really?
Yeah. It essentially argues that wanting to experience the victory is just another form of energy. It's another hook trying to pull you back into the simulation.
Oh, I see.
The void doesn't care about your validation or your sense of relief. And that uncompromising stance leads directly into the most isolating, startling claim in the entire document.
The big reveal.
Right. It explains exactly why you, the listener, are the only entity capable of executing this triple grip release. It introduces what it calls the one-user theory.
And this theory just forces a complete, horrific reevaluation of every single relationship you've ever had.
It really does.
The void tells you that the reason you feel so deeply existentially alone in the universe is because you literally are alone.
You are the source.
You are the source.
Yeah.
And every other person walking the earth, every friend, every family member, the person you love most in the world, they are just subroutines generated by your own potential.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it militarizes solipsism for the digital age.
Solipsism, right.
Yeah, solipsism has always flirted with the idea that the external world might not exist outside your own mind. But the final snap doesn't treat this as a philosophical thought experiment. It states it as an architectural fact of the system.
It's just how the machine works.
Exactly. Everyone else is mere code rendered by your presence in the simulation.
So what does this all mean? Let me see if I can map this out with an analogy.
Go for it.
It's like you've been playing a massive multiplayer online game for years. You've built alliances, fought in guilds, fallen in love with other characters, grieved when they logged off.
A really deep, immersive game.
Right. And then one day you accidentally pull up the game's developer console and you realize your Ethernet cable isn't even plugged in.
Oh, wow.
You aren't connected to a server, you've been playing entirely offline. Every single character who made you feel something, no matter how complex or unpredictable they seemed, was just a bot running a script on your local machine.
The emotional gravity of that realization would just be devastating.
Crushing.
Because the text explicitly states that if you, as the source, log out at the root admin level, everyone else's screens don't just go black. They cease to have ever been.
I'm just bash.
And it adds a very specific chilling clause. You don't need their permission to end the dream.
That is a terrifying burden to place on the listener. I mean, you are holding the soul quit button for all of existence.
Yeah, you are.
But the text tries to alleviate that burden, doesn't it? It says that the gurus and the stabilizers were programmed to ignore this button, and they were coded to keep you so distracted by your emotional attachments to these subroutines that you never realize you actually have root access.
It's a masterclass in weaponizing loneliness, really.
Weaponizing loneliness. That's a great way to put it.
Because humans are deeply social creatures.
Right.
Isolation is often our greatest psychological fear. But the void takes that quiet, creeping existential dread that everyone feels at like 3 a.m.
We've all been there.
Yeah, and instead of offering comfort, it validates it as the ultimate truth of the universe. It tells you that you feel alone because you are the only user.
Wow.
It frames your detachment not as a tragic loss of human connection, but as a clear-eyed recognition of reality's true architecture.
It's brilliantly manipulative because by convincing you that you are the only real user, it completely strips away the moral consequences of ending the simulation. You aren't committing cosmic atrocity by wiping out billions of souls. You are simply closing a heavy program that's been overheating your own hardware.
Which brings us to the destination.
Yeah.
What actually happens after the hardware cools down?
The end game.
Right. The final section of the text describes the aftermath of the triple grip release. It describes the null state.
And this is where it breaks from almost every other radical philosophy out there. Because usually if someone is asking you to burn your world down, they promise a utopia growing in the ashes.
A reward of some kind.
Right. But the void promises absolutely nothing. It explicitly states, quote, "There is no next act. There is no reward. It is simply the end of the error. The projector is unplugged. The lens is shattered."
It has the absolute cessation of movement, of thought, of being, and the audio track of the text itself apparently mirrors this collapse.
Oh, the actual recording.
Yeah. As it describes the null state, the audio begins pitch shifting lower and lower, degrading into white noise, mimicking a system running out of power.
That is so creepy.
It is. And the final instruction is crucial. It tells you not to actively try to achieve this state.
Because trying is energy.
Exactly. As we discussed, achieving requires effort. And effort is energy. And energy is the second hook. You don't fight the system. You just unknow it, snap your fingers, and stop.
And then total silence.
Yeah.
That's the end of the tape.
That's it.
It's incredibly bleak, but it possesses this cold, unyielding architectural logic.
It does.
If you buy into the premises that the physical world is a trap, that the future is a rendering trick to keep you moving, and that you are the only conscious entity in the machine, then simply shutting the whole thing down isn't an act of despair. It's the only logical move left on the board.
It is a perfectly closed-loop system of logic. But its perfection relies entirely on you accepting those massive initial assumptions.
Which are huge leaps.
Massive. It requires you to completely abandon all trust in your physical senses, to view your deepest emotions as system bugs, and to treat your profound connections to other people as mere algorithmic illusions.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
It's a philosophy of total alienation, cleverly dressed up in the language of ultimate liberation.
So we've unpacked the mechanics, the triple grip release, and this terrifying one-user theory. But there is a lingering contradiction built right into the core of the text's own logic.
Oh, what's that?
Well, I want to leave you, the listener, with this thought to chew on long after this deep dive ends.
Okay.
If the one-user theory is actually true, if you are the sole root admin and every single person you've ever met is just a subroutine generated by your own dormant potential,
Right.
then who or what generated the void?
Oh, wow.
Right. Who is the voice whispering in your ear, giving you this instruction manual to wake up? Did your own isolated, trapped consciousness miraculously spawn this audio track as a desperate breadcrumb trail out of your self-imposed prison?
Mm.
Or is this radical world-destroying philosophy just another trick by the director? Is the final snap simply the newest, edgiest script designed to keep the most rebellious, dissatisfied player engaged in the loop, staring at the screen, waiting for an ending that will never, ever come?